Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really happy to introduce Amanda Kaufman, who has been a teacher for over 20 years. She's a member of our Education Advisory Board. She has at least one child with Tourette syndrome, and I'm just thrilled that she's going to share this with you. Without any more ado, here's Amanda Kaufman.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Amanda Kaufman. I have been a teacher. This is my 21st year in the field. I have three kids. My kids are in fifth grade, eighth grade, and then I have a college freshman who is not happy to be home learning along with the rest of us currently. Both of my younger children have Tourette syndrome, so we have been through some of the challenges of schooling with them all along, and here we're into a new set of challenges that this at-home environment prepares. So the one big takeaway that I want you to have from this is that we all just need to take a deep breath and relax. This is not like anything you've ever been asked to do before. It's not like anything anyone has ever been asked to do before. I have several friends who homeschool by choice all the time, and that's the one thing that they say to me all the time is what we are doing right now is not homeschooling. It is distance learning, and that's very different. Homeschooling families generally get out of the house a lot, and we're not in a position where we can do that. So I just want to talk to you today about some things that I've learned along in my career and over the 5 weeks now that I've been home with my kids, trying to make this work so that hopefully things can get a little easier for you as well. Okay, so let's start with the resources. The big takeaway that I have from this is that there's just too much out there. So I live in Kansas. Kansas was, I believe, the first state to announce that we were closing schools for the year. So my kids came home from school on March 12th, and they have not been back since. Um, and so at the time, I joined like a couple of different Facebook groups about online learning resources and those kinds of things, and quickly became overwhelmed with everything that was out there and took myself back off. So we're going to talk today about two different kinds of resources: the things that your school is providing to you, and then what I call curiosity-driven resources, so things that you can use to supplement what your school is doing. Also, anywhere along the line, if you have any questions you want to ask about anything, if you just put those over in the chat, then when I'm done with my presentation, I'll go back and answer as many of those as I can. The thing to know about whatever your school is providing to you is, number one, that is incredibly varied as well. So in Kansas, with our school district, ours is completely voluntary and it's all learning opportunities. And the kids are not going to be graded in any way. We're not giving any formal tests. It's just opportunities for what you do at home. Whereas I have friends who are teaching in a district in Pennsylvania where they have to do synchronous learning. The kids have to show up to class and they have to take attendance every day. So it's going to be varied what you're experiencing and what you're receiving from your schools. A key thing to keep in mind is that virtually no K to 12 teachers have any experience in online or distance learning either. So just like when I talk to teachers about Tourette and I say, it's okay that you don't know any of this, you were never taught it, we have to take that same attitude about this distance learning that we're doing. It's okay that they don't know what they're doing. They've never been taught it. So as frustrating as it can be, I'm going to ask you to please be as kind as possible to teachers and administrators in emails, in phone calls, and most importantly, on social media. Um, Nobody needs to hear complaints about what's going on right now. The second thing that's really important is what I get Sunday night an email from my daughter's fifth grade teacher, for instance, about everything that they've made available for the week. And I look over that and I'm like, I don't know what most of this stuff is. Like, I don't know how she accesses Connect Ed to read the story she's supposed to read this week. But the key thing is your child does. The teachers are, for the most part, not using new tools with the kids that they haven't already used. So if there is, something you don't understand, just say to your kids, so it says here that you need to get on Google Classroom and do this. Do you know how to do that? And most likely your child does. Surprisingly, even your little ones know how to get onto those resources. And if they don't, now is a great time to teach them how to write an appropriate email. No matter how young they are, it's time to teach them how to be able to do that so that they can connect with the teacher and get the resource they need. For example, my daughter didn't know a password for one of the things she needed. So she emailed her teacher, she got that password back, she was fine. So trust your children to know what to do. And some of them, especially our highly anxious kids, are immediately going to say, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And so what I always use, and yes, they find it annoying, is, well, what would you do if you did know what to do? So it just gives you that step to take a deep breath and, well, what's something you could try? If you did know how to answer this, what do you think the answer would be? So that they can work through some of that problem solving. That's a big theme from me today, is that opportunities for frustration during this time are positive, not negative. And you can also help your child during this time to reframe school without grades and tests and all of the social things that go into it and all of the sort of high stakes environment. Not all of our kids love school. I have to say, both of my kids tolerate school. Neither of them really, are regretting that it isn't happening, to be honest. So this is a chance to be like, school is about being able to learn and being able to move forward and become a more educated person. It's not about the grade that you're getting on any particular thing. My daughter was absolutely amazed yesterday when we went over a math worksheet and we went over all of her mistakes, and she said, do I have to redo the problems? And I said, no. You know what it is you're supposed to do now. There's no point in you going back and redoing the problems because there's no grade for it. So it was just about understanding the concept. So if we can help our kids to reframe learning in that way, then when formal schooling resumes, we'll all be better off. The other set of resources are your curiosity resources. So what we really want everybody to be able to do is understand that lifelong learners don't wait for the learning to be assigned. So we need to constantly be asking our kids, what would you learn if you got to choose? So I've spent the last 14 or 15 years of my career in gifted education. And that is a lot of what I've done with gifted kids, is helping them to create their own self-study. So, what are you interested in? What do you wonder about? What's a topic that you don't know enough about or that you have questions about? And really helping them to decide how to fill some of that learning time with things that they want to know. So really let your child guide that time. And I think that we as adults need to redefine what we consider to be wasted time. So it is not wasted time to be on Netflix watching a documentary about something that you're really interested in. It's not wasted time to be following your favorite physicist on YouTube. There's a lot of YouTube that is wasted time. But helping them to, reframe being able to sit in front of Netflix or YouTube, but to do it for a purpose is really important. Talk about their interests and help them to expand that exploration. So have them talk to you about that book they read or the documentary they watched or the video they watched, and ask questions like, well, what do you wonder now? Or how would you test that out yourself? Okay, so maybe my son is really interested in astronomy right now. So that's what his personal exploration is on, is astronomy. So what's some kind of test you could do for gravity? And once you've done that, how do you refine that? Or what would make this more difficult? Or what would make it more challenging? Or those kinds of things to help them really move into deeper study of that topic that they're interested in. The other thing that I would say is just find a few good resources and ignore the rest. So some of my favorite things, I use Khan Academy for math with my kids. Their district happens to use Engage New York as their math curriculum, and Khan Academy lines up perfectly with that. They have an alignment with that, so that's been really helpful. But I think that Khan Academy is very effective. So rather than looking at all of the different math programs available, that's the one that I chose to use. And now I'm not looking at math anymore. So I'm not saying that that's the only thing that you should use. I'm saying find the thing that works and then set aside the search for everything else. I use crash course videos because they are really highly curated and well done. So when my kids are spending time on YouTube, the question that I will often ask is, who is the creator and what are their credentials? And so if your kid can't tell you that, then that's probably, more of the like garbage stuff that they're able to find. Good creators with actual credentials are putting some good stuff out there. So rather than saying no YouTube, we will limit it to what are some YouTube channels that you can go to where you can learn this stuff. The last resource that I will say is don't forget your public library. Our public libraries have really good resources for ebooks and for audiobooks, but also for language learning, some excellent streaming documentaries that you can get. There are amazing resources at your public library, so don't forget to look there. Okay, so you've got together all of your resources. You know what the school is asking you to do. You've talked to your kids about what they're interested in. You pulled out some things for that. So then what do you do with all of this? And the scheduling of it, I think, is what can be overwhelming to parents, especially those of you who are working from home while you're trying to maintain schedules from home. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of your schedule. A big question to start is, how much structure does your child need? And that may be different for each child in your house. So for example, my son just needs to be told, you have to spend 3 hours a day learning, you've got to read, you've got to write something every day, you've got to explore your interest, and the one thing you absolutely have to do is master algebra before the beginning of next year, because you will be moving on to geometry, so you have to learn algebra. That's all he needs to be told. Then he's got it. He can take it, he can prioritize, he can move ahead, he's perfectly fine. My daughter, not so great at that. So she needs to be told what you're going to do in each subject. So this is what I need you to do on math today. And this is what I need you to read today. And what are you going to work on for writing today? Those kinds of things. She needs it much more laid out. I was doing it day by day for her, and that wasn't working. So then this week I tried to go for the whole week, and then that was overwhelming to her. So there's also the idea that we have to adjust those structures a little bit to allow for what's working and what's not, and sometimes even on a given day. I got a text from my sister-in-law yesterday that at-home learning was a complete bust for the day. And sometimes it is a complete bust for the day. That's okay. The other thing to keep in mind is that individual learning is condensed. It's not like learning in a classroom. You don't have to wait for somebody else to ask their question and get it answered. You're not waiting on any of those other things. So you really don't need to be spending a full school day to get a full school day out of it. Also keep in mind that all learning doesn't have to be formal. If you have the ability to get outside, like even into your front yard or your driveway, like being able to be outside and do some informal learning out there is great. If you've got real little ones, asking them to count the number of dogs that walk past, in the next 15 minutes, which would be a big number in my neighborhood, or the number of birds that they see, those kinds of things. Not everything has to be really formal. You're sitting down and you're learning, and this is the time that you're doing that. Allow as much choice as you can for your child, depending on what they can deal with. But at a very minimum, what are they going to do first? What are they going to do next? What are they going to accomplish today? And here's the hard part. We need to let them make mistakes and learn from those. So the second week that we were learning at home. Um, I gave my daughter the list of things that she had to do for language arts and said, but you can do them in any order you want to do them. Well, she chose read her book of choice for the first 3 days of the week, and that's what she did. And then she had to spend Thursday and Friday doing all of the work she didn't want to do. That was a bad choice. I knew it was a bad choice by Tuesday, but I let her make that mistake and learn from that mistake, because me saying to her, I don't think you should do this, I think that you should work on main idea and details today, is not giving her the ability to make those decisions on her own. And as long as I continue to make those decisions, she's not going to learn how to organize her learning. And I also have a college student at home that we're still working on study strategies with. So this is a great opportunity to be able to really impart those study strategies and decisions on our children now when there's a really low stakes environment to do that with. Break up the time for learning as necessary for your child. So we're going to talk about kind of some guidelines on amount of time that they should be spending. But some kids can, sit for 2 hours and work, and some kids can sit for 20 minutes and work, and that's it. So we have to be respectful of their actual limits and realize that those limits might change from day to day, depending on how well they're sleeping or what other stressors are going on in your life during this crazy time. So what I would recommend is use tasks for learning time and timers for break time. So you could say you can take a break as soon as you've finished these 5 math problems, and then your break can be 15 minutes. But if you say you spend 15 more minutes on math, you can take a break for 15 minutes, you will be surprised at how little can be accomplished in that 15 minutes of math. If, however, you have to finish these 5 problems before you can get a break, you would be amazed at how quickly those 5 problems can be accomplished. So use the task to set the parameters for the amount of time they need to spend learning, and then use timers and time-dependent things for the amount of time that they can take a break. Also, just what I've learned over the years is usually for all kids, it's 3 times as much learning time as break time. So if you've got a kid who can, really work for 45 minutes, then a 15-minute break before they come back is usually sufficient. If you've got a kid who can only work for 15 minutes, then don't give them a 15-minute break. Give them a 5-minute break to be able to come back and learn. And just know that you don't have to fill every minute. The other thing I say that my kids hate is only boring people are bored. But it's true. Our kids do not get a lot of time in our current society to be bored. They move from one thing to another in school. Then they have their after school activities and their sports practices, and they come home and they have dinner and they have homework routines, and they don't have a whole lot of time to sit and contemplate. And now they have a whole lot of time to sit and contemplate. So know that as you may be trying to work from home or manage other things and they're making you crazy, you do not have to fill every minute for them. And it is fine for them to be bored. Being bored is where the problem solving comes in. How do I solve this problem of being bored? I have options. What do I want to really spend this time on? So this is exactly what our schedule looks like. This is the schedule that I actually post every single day in my house. And the kids know where it is and they come look at it. I have kids who generally get up fairly early in the morning, and they're old enough to be fairly self-sufficient as far as pour a bowl of cereal. So I don't have to do a lot of formal things in the morning. So we just have the day starts at 9. Prior to 9 a.m., you must have eaten breakfast. Get dressed, maybe. If you're planning on getting dressed today, then you should probably do that by 9. Not that that happens every day. Then our time from 9 to 11 is academic time. We'll talk about how much time you're putting in just a minute, but that 9 to 11 time, that 2 hours, is sufficient for my 5th grader. Honestly, to get through everything that her teachers have sent and more. It's not quite sufficient for my 8th grader to get through everything. So that's why we have another academic time later in the day. So I kind of color coded this for you. So we have 2 academic times, 2 hours in the morning and then an hour in the afternoon. So my daughter, who's done with all of her academics in the afternoon, uses that afternoon time to do art and to practice her trumpet. So it's also very helpful for the rest of the family to know that 2:30 is the time she's going to practice her trumpet. It's not a great time to schedule a call. The things that are in yellow are the times that I say, I don't care what you're doing as long as you're not bothering me. So free time is truly free time. I did not schedule every minute of my kids' after school time when they were in school, and I do not schedule it now. So if you're going to waste time, if you were going to watch some stupid YouTube video, if you're going to video chat with your friends, if you're going to read a book, this is the time that you get to do that. And I'm not going to ask you what you're doing, but you also can't intrude on my time during that time. You need to keep yourself entertained. Now, if your kids are a lot littler, you're probably not going to be able to have a lot of time where they keep themselves entertained. I have a lot of that in my schedule. My bigger concern was that I have 2 teenagers, and if we don't put in place things for teenagers so that we see their faces and we know that they're still doing okay, then we won't see their faces and we won't know if they're doing okay. So everything that is in red on my schedule are mandatory. We do these together. So we eat lunch together at noon. My husband joins us when he can. He's also working from home, so if he has something scheduled at noon, he doesn't. But he's also aware that noon is lunchtime and tries to work that into his schedule. We do then exercise and chores. Yes, they're assigned a chore every single day, and they're required to exercise every single day. I take a walk. Anybody is welcome to join me. They have lots of other options that they can choose for exercise. Family reading time at 2 o'clock is mandatory, and it is a read aloud. So my kids are 10, 14, and 18, and we get together and read aloud every single day. And this is the best thing that COVID has brought into my life. So do you remember when your kids were really little and you loved just cuddling up and reading to them? Well, I get to do that every single day now. And the first book that we started with was Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus, and it has a really great character with Tourette in there, and it has a couple of scenes in a Tourette support group that we were busting out laughing, sharing together. So the other reason for that time, other than I just love it, is that that gives me a mid-afternoon check-in with my teenagers who I haven't seen since lunch. It gives them a break of, no, you're not, going on your device here in the middle of the day either. There's time for that during free time. This is time for us to be together. We have dinner together every night, and then we do a family activity every night. So you are required at 7 o'clock to be with the family doing something, whether it's a board game. We did a paper airplane contest. We played Foursquare together on the driveway. Last night we watched Drunk History together. There's something that happens at 7 o'clock every night so that we're together. And then again, everybody is able to sort of wind down in their own time. So this is the schedule that works for our family. I'm not saying that this is a perfect schedule. If your kids are of different ages, if you have greater work requirements, then you're going to have to be able to adjust those things. But I really recommend that you put some time in place for all of the things that you want people to accomplish through the day. That schedule can really bring a lot of comfort. So here are our must includes. So every day must include reading. We read together and you read separately every single day. Time to talk. So we have 2 meals a day together to be able to talk. And it's really important that we think, whether we're making it explicit or not, that every day contains something positive, something that people can look forward to, something to accomplish. So whether it's schoolwork or it's something else, we have a dinner challenge every night. You have to bring something with you to dinner. Yesterday, it was your favorite Picasso painting. So that's something to accomplish. I have to spend 10 minutes, doing a little research on the internet to find my favorite Picasso painting. Every day needs downtime, which is that free time in which they're not bothering me and I'm not bothering them. Connection with other humans, and as much as you can, other humans outside of your house. Choice and self-direction, exercise, some kind of fun. And here it is again, opportunities for frustration. What I tell my kids and have always told them is that my job as your mom is not to make your life easy, it's to make your life possible. So we need to think about that. It is not your job to become an individual one-on-one tutor for your child for the next however many weeks so that they have the easiest time in the world transitioning back to school. It is your job to keep your kids mentally, physically happy and healthy so that they are able to go on with their lives whenever we're able to do that. So what does this learning time look like? Well, here's where I was saying there are some guidelines for how much. And I've seen these guidelines from several different places, and this is what makes a lot of sense to me. So they say for early childhood, for your kids who are K-2, an hour a day is all that they really need to spend learning in formal education. And I think that that's pretty accurate. It's kind of hard to adjust to because we send our K-2 kids to school for 7 hours a day, and now we're saying all they really needed of that time was an hour of it. But what we're doing a lot with kids that age is teaching them how to do school, how to sit and listen, how to interact with each other, how to work in a group. So really 1 hour of formal instruction is all they need. Now for kids that little, they're going to need an hour of your time. It does not have to be consecutive, 1 hour total. It could be broken up into 2 half hours or even 3 20-minute periods throughout the day. But this is when you're looking at really the formal instruction, like they're reading, they're practicing math, they're, learning a science or social studies topic that they're interested in. There are lots of other, opportunities for art and things like that that they could do outside of that hour time. For 3rd to 5th grade, 2 hours. Same thing. It can easily be broken up into, single hour or half hour time slots. If your child has a lot of attention needs, like one of my children does, then, 20-minute time slots, if that's how you need to do it with those shorter breaks thrown in. And then your secondary students, 6th through 12th grade, about 3 hours. And that's a reasonable amount for them to be spending. So again, school is not the 7-hour time commitment that it was before. You don't have time to change classes. You're not including lunch in that. You're not including recess in that. So you can kind of relax yourself a little bit about the amount of time that you need to be on deck as teacher. Also, depending on your child, I have a 5th grader and an 8th grader in there, so I'm doing 2 to 3 hours of instruction a day. Those are 2 to 3 hours of time that I'm available, but that's not time that I'm necessarily sitting next to them. It's time that they can ask questions if they have them. And again, I would say focus on task over time. If your kid is accomplishing everything you wanted them to accomplish or everything their teacher wanted them to in less than that 2 hours, then that's perfectly fine. If it's going to take them significantly more than that 2 hours, then maybe we need to pare down what it is they're really being asked to do. So when do you do this? We saw the times in my schedule, but it totally depends on your child, and it's not necessarily the same for all children or even all children in your house. If you've got an early riser that really is ready to go, that's great. Schedule things as early as you can. If you need to wait for the meds to kick in the morning, like we do, then it's perfectly fine to put that off a little bit until you've got that best learning time. So look at that. What is really the best learning time for your child? And capitalize on those strong times, those times when they are most able to pay attention to things. The other thing that I will say is don't force your teen to get up at 7 a.m. There is a lot of research out there that says secondary school should be starting much later than they do, that the optimal time would be after 9 a.m. in the morning. that teenagers' circadian rhythms are different and they naturally stay up later and get up later. And I think that this is a great time nationwide for us to test out some of the research that we know. My son has discovered that he is not really ready to focus until about 10 a.m. So he spends that first hour that we have reading and studying astronomy, his major interest, and he doesn't start math till 10 o'clock in the morning because that's when he concentrates best. The great thing to be able to do with this and really figure out what works for your kids is that next year when you go into scheduling, especially for your secondary kids, if I find that the best time my son can learn math is 10 o'clock in the morning, and I know that that's fourth hour in high school, I'm going to ask that his math class be scheduled third or fourth hour rather than first hour, because I know that's not working so well for him. So we really have this kind of cool, time to be a lab and do some experiments for what works with our kids so that we can better advocate for them. And like I said, this doesn't all have to be at once. You can break it up throughout the day. Keeping in mind that you want quality instruction time over quantity of instruction time. So I encourage you to make a list of what people need to accomplish. We talked about, breaks if necessary, recognizing that some days or some topics are going to require more breaks than others. But we do want to create a set time and place. So academic time starts at 9 a.m. in our house. For my son, that means he goes to his room. He has his own desktop computer. That's where he prefers to work. For my daughter, she tried to work in our home office, but that's where her older sister is also doing college, and that was very distracting for her. So she set up her own system in the living room, and that's where she works. So she has a set time and place. And we need to make a distraction-free learning place. So that means your phones are put away. If that means in another room, it's another room. Anything that's going to distract you is not with you at that particular time, except for the cats. I somehow can't keep them from being distracting. But the other thing to really keep a look on is only the tabs you need on your computer are open. So this is what I have discovered as a middle school teacher, is that kids want that constant distraction. So they will open this game over here, or, this chat thing over here, and then I can just click back and forth between them. So if you need to, set your kid up, if your child needs to work in a place that you can see them, then set them up in a place you can see them. My son is fine to work without that. My daughter is not. And make sure that they're truly ready. You have everything you need: pencil, calculator, books, all of those things. And let's take a look at your computer. What tabs are open? What's closed? Are you ready to go? So really making sure that they're able to focus. So a lot of our kids have accommodations at school, right? You might have an IEP, you might have a 504, you might even have more informal accommodations in place for your child based on their needs, but a lot of our kids have some kind of accommodation. And I think that the great thing about this, if there is a great thing, is that accommodations are freely available now, right? Everybody gets extra time on anything that they wanted. Nothing is timed anymore. They can use text to speech if they need to. They can use speech to text if they need to, if handwriting is an issue like it is in our house. Separate testing location is an accommodation that my daughter has. And the first time she reached a quiz on Khan Academy, she was sitting at her little desk where she works, and she said, I test in a separate room. And she got up and she went to the couch and sat down to take the quiz. So, but having those accommodations of being able to be separated from everybody else, eliminating distractions is a lot of times what we're looking for our kids. Those things can all happen at home. If you have an accommodation for your child that you need and you don't know how to do it at home, reach out to their teacher or reach out to their special education teacher if they have one. That's what they're still there for, is to make those accommodations work. So, for instance, if your child usually is given guided notes, and now one of the things they're being asked to do is watch a video, ask for guided notes to go along with that video. Just like they would have guided notes for a lecture, it's reasonable to ask for guided notes for a video. And once the teachers are aware that that's necessary, that's an accommodation they can put in place. Just don't assume that they are in a position to be able to think about each child's IEP or 504 plan and how that would play out in an online environment in 30 different home environments. You know, rather than getting upset because something isn't happening, just make sure that you ask for it to really be happening and think about what is truly necessary. The other great thing about this is that you're home and you can make a note of what is working. You can make a note of what is really their reading stamina. How much more output do they get when they're able to use speech to text than when they have to do handwriting? What particular tools really are helping with math? And once you know these things, you can use them to inform next year's plan of these are things that really work for my child, or these are things that I noticed at home really work for my child. Keeping in mind that everything that works in the one-on-one environment with your child is not going to work in the 30-on-1 environment of a general education classroom. And most importantly, we just need to keep our eye on the goals that we have right now. Your goal is to keep your child engaged in learning and become a lifelong learner. There is no single learning experience that is make or break right now. I tell my kids they're so lucky because when they encounter something in life that they probably should have learned, but they actually don't know, they can just say, well, that must have been taught during COVID. Oh, why don't I know this capital of Vermont? That must have been covered during COVID. So they do get the opportunity to do that. So just keep that in mind. It really doesn't matter so much what they're learning. It matters that they are engaged in learning. It matters that they are working on it and that they have a positive experience with it. Learning can also happen in so many ways. So if something isn't working, don't do it. And as far as creating that relationship with your child over learning, now is the chance for you to advocate in ways that you couldn't before. I'm going to use science as my example here because both of my kids love science and their science teachers know I think they're great. So if they ever say this, they won't take it personally. But let's say that your child has had a terrible experience in science this year. They are not connecting with the teacher. They hate the topic. It is the bane of their existence. Then you get to tell them, you don't have to do science. Maybe, what do you want to learn in science? Or I really do need you to learn the phases of the moon, but you don't have to watch the video your teacher sent. How do you want to learn it? My guess is that they have a lot of creative ideas for being able to do these things, and they can come up with it. So we get to say to them, what's not working for you, you don't have to do. Because learning can happen in so many ways. And if they never learn that content, if they go into next year and they don't know the phases of the moon, it's okay. I even say that to my college student. If there is some concept in Bio 2 that you have missed, trust me, you'll get caught up in medical school and you'll be fine. So let's take a little pressure off our kids and off ourselves. It's okay to waste time. Not everything that we would consider to be wasted time really is, but it's also okay to waste time. It's important to model for your children. So if you're working from home, then you need to have a set place in which you're doing that and a schedule that you can share with other people to say, this is when I'm on a conference call. This is when I need to be working. This is the time I have to myself. And model the distraction-free environment. Perhaps your cell phone does not need to sit at your desk while you work. Maybe it does. Maybe you're also taking calls on that. Make sure your tabs are closed on your computer that you don't need. Really set that good example for working from home, but also set that good example about curiosity. What's something you're curious about? What are you going to learn about while you're home? What book are you going to read that you've been putting off? Make sure that we model those things for the kids and then explicitly talk about them. The number one thing we talk about as teachers is relationship before rigor. So it matters much more as a teacher that you have a relationship with that child before you can really push them to learn. You already have a relationship with your child, and the most important thing on the other end of this is that your relationship with your child comes out okay. So do not get into a screaming match with your child over math. Now, those who know me and have been in my house while my daughter was doing her math homework prior to this would call me a hypocrite right now, because we more than once have screamed at each other over math. But now that we're trapped here together, we don't. Sometimes we just need to put that aside for now, and we'll come back to it later, or we'll try that again tomorrow. Or, I can see that this is too frustrating for you, or this is too frustrating for me right now, and we're going to have to modify it. Relationship over instruction. I want you to come out of this feeling closer to your kids and not ruining the day because you yelled at each other over school. And in that vein, the consistency is necessary. We talked about schedules and all that, but change is okay. If something isn't working, change it. If you've got something else going on today, seems hard to believe we have anything going on, but for example, I had to go pick up groceries today. Then we had to cancel family reading. So that consistency is necessary, but it is okay to change. And the last thing I want to leave you with, I was catching up on some journal reading since I have all of this time on my hands and I'm modeling for my children, pursuing academic interests. And I was reading an article where they were talking about different mental health outcomes. And they were saying that the elimination of symptoms is generally considered to be the goal of most therapies. But that elimination of symptoms is only surviving. And that our real goal should be the experiencing of positive emotions. And that's how we thrive. So, rather than just eliminating the need to teach and having things go okay for the day, let's really focus on what positive experiences do we have and do our children have every day, so that together we can really thrive. Okay. So that is what I have for you. Any questions? I'm not seeing anything, Wendy. Are you seeing something that I'm missing?
No, I don't see anything, but oh, here's one.
Oh, yeah.
Just came in.
So
Do you want to read it?
Yep. So the question is, how do you balance the school's expectations of digital learning with your child's ability to do the work? And if I've got a scale between those two things, my priority is my child's ability to do the work. It says our school has planned 2 hours of classes and says there will be 2 hours of homework per day. That's crazy. And I would be open and honest with the teachers about what I'm actually instituting. So, that's what I've done with my kids' teachers. I have said, I'm going to use the stuff that you provided as resources. I already have a plan for what I'm going to do. And that's kind of where we are. So my son's algebra teacher did email me and was like, he's not logged on at all. This is a problem. And I responded with, thanks for the great stuff. We're using Khan Academy. And she was like, oh, okay. In different schools, you have different expectations. Like I said, maybe your child is still receiving grades. I would just be real honest with, the 2 hours of classes a day are working for us. There's no way he's going to get through all of the homework. And then set the expectation that he's not going to do the homework, and then maybe try some homework so that you can see what's reasonable to create next year's plan. Also, if you have some kind of formalized accommodations, if he has an IEP, if he has a 504, reach out to that case manager and just be like, you know, what do you think is reasonable? This is what I'm seeing at home. This is what's working for us. But you've got to live in your house with your child every day. So you can only do what's going to be reasonable for your kid.
So Amanda, I don't see any other questions right now. You covered so much. Somebody said great presentation. I completely agree. I can't wait to send this out to more people. I actually was just thinking about this, and I think you covered it, but you know, reaching out to the teachers themselves. So when work is too much, and sometimes the resource room teacher, consultant teacher might not be available to help, reaching out to the teacher and letting them know that you're all doing the best you can,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think is the best thing when your child is really struggling with the amount of work or
Mm-hmm.
the content of the work or whatever it is.
Right. And what I'm hearing from my friends who are teaching during this time is that they sort of are losing control of their work-life balance as well. Since there's no defined hours for school anymore, they work all the time. So it's just a constant stream of video calls or emails or things that need to be responded to. So please don't let that make you hesitate at all in reaching out to somebody. Just understand that days seem to last forever now, and it's still reasonable to expect that it's going to take 24 hours for somebody to respond to you. But they don't see your child in school, and they can't see them struggling, and they can't see what's going on, you know, behind the computer screen. So, you know, yes, feel free to reach out and say, this is what we're able to accomplish right now, and ask them to prioritize. We're only able to get through about a good hour and a half in a full day. So where do you want us to start, and what do you want us to prioritize? They would much rather be able to help you make that plan than just feel like, you know, they're sort of at a loss as to what's going on with your child. Okay, it says, do you worry about kids using their free time for just one thing? Um, yes, when my son's one thing is video games, I worry about that. So I, I feel like we have enough structured time in place that their free time is not really the majority of their day. So there's a lot of time during his free time, he's allowed to play all the video games he wants. I mean, you know, maybe we're looking at an e-scholarship here someday, I don't know. But during the rest of the day, he's not. So during chores and exercise, he's expected to mow the lawn, and he's expected to get out and take a walk with us, and, you know, and do things that are not locked away in his room. But his free time is his free time. So I guess that depends on where your child's at. I will also say our kids are dealing with a lot of other psychiatric diagnoses as well. One of the issues that he deals with being depression, which he wouldn't mind me sharing with you, which is the only reason I am. So we are closely monitoring that. He was losing weight, so making sure that he's actually eating, that his mood is okay, and really just having those open conversations about, I'm concerned about your mood and the amount of frustration you're coming out with because you're spending too much time in this online game. Could you, you know, what else could you spend your time doing? And really sort of negotiating that. I think those are great conversations to have.
Unless anyone has any more questions, I think this is great. I know one thing I was thinking about, Amanda, and maybe the attendees would appreciate this, you know, a copy of your slides or a copy at least of the schedule, I think is
Sure.
fantastic. And we can kind of post a link to that. It will be in our website where the link to this will remain to people can come on and listen to it anytime. So
Yeah,
that
definitely.
would
I
be
could send you a
fantastic.
link to it. Yep.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. This was really fantastic. And I know I really appreciated it and got something out of it as well. I feel like I can make a fresh start next week on Monday with some of your ideas too, really. So thank you. And thank you everyone who was able to participate and join us. And the link should be available if you do want to recommend other people to come and watch it, because I know I will be sending it out to people for sure. So thanks so much, Amanda, and have a great evening, everybody.
All
And thanks
right.
for attending.
Good luck, everybody.